This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1631, Previews.
Laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek, uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is...
I'm Adam Murdo.
And I'm Chris Eberly.
There we go. Something like that. All right, welcome to the show. This is another one of our Comic Geek Speak monthly previews episodes in which we run down the big fat previews catalog as put out by Diamond Comics Distribution to talk about anything and everything that looks good, promising, interesting to us. So it's always a lot of fun. We enjoy doing it. And you got a two-live crew this time out. A two-man crew, I should say. The persons of Professor Eberly and myself. How you doing tonight, Chris?
Indeed. Brother, whenever I'm on the line here or in the studio, all is well. Good to hear your voice.
Good to hear yours, too, Chris. This is indeed a tonic for the soul. Yes, and it's going to be doing me more and more good as the weeks progress and we move closer to the fateful Christmas holiday. Yeah, there's just more and more tension that will need to be released for me.
I can imagine how hectic the Christmas barn gets as the weeks move towards Christmas. So
yeah, it's still bearable now, Chris. But a couple of weeks, this will be a blessed oasis for me, indeed. So,
well, I plan to visit the Christmas barn at some point in December, I hope. So,
well, I look forward to your visit, Chris.
Oh yeah, we enjoyed ourselves thoroughly last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, excellent.
Excellent indeed. All right, so let's start off by acknowledging our sponsor for this and every previews episode of Comic Geek Speak, and that is Discount Comic Book Service, Inc. Visit their website at dcbservice.com to see what they're all about. They are a comic book online retailer. They're your go-to source for pre-ordering comic books and related materials at fantastic discounts. They offer this month, as every month, they specialize in bundles, just themed bundles of contemporary releases, where you can purchase a certain number of comic books. Like, for example, this month they've got all DC and Marvel hardcovers and trade paperbacks released this month, 50% off for the bunch of them. They continue to do DC Universe Rebirth bundles and Marvel Now bundles. There's a bundle this month for new DC miniseries and also Vertigo and Young Animal titles. And They offer special discounts on just about every single release from the big two, and slightly less steep discounts on releases from other publishers. And there are certain special issues, like first issues of new series and such. They offer introductory special discounts on some of those every month, roughly half a dozen every month, in which we get to like 50% off certain issues. Or even in very rare cases, 75% off, and I'll be doing my best to do what our sometimes producer Pants does, and highlight those special discounts as we go along through the catalog. Plus, in addition to their everyday great discounts and the special great discounts that they routinely offer, you can't beat their customer service. They really do look after you at dcbservice.com. We've been using them as comic book suppliers. Those of us who are the hosts of the show who don't own their own comic book stores, that is, for many years. And we stand by their services, and we proudly endorse them, and we thank them for the long-time partnership that we've had with them. DCBService.com, Discount Comic Book Service, the place to go for pre-ordering comics at low prices.
All right. Well said, brother. We should say right up front, we are not going to be doing an OTR with this previews. We may return to that once we consult with our fellow cast members, but we have to do an episode in the near future. We have to catch up because we're a couple months behind now with OTRs. Again, everybody's schedule sometimes makes it very difficult to get enough people together to discuss the OTRs because, it's fun to have as many people as possible involved in that. So We're going to try to schedule something in the not-too-distant future where we can catch up for the last couple months of books, and we're looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and meanwhile, we're just our schedules are going to intensify still further as we get into holiday season overdrive here. So it'll be good to give ourselves a month's break. So, no off the racks this time, but we're just gonna just plow into the catalog and see what goodies appeal to the two of us this month.
Brother, let us begin with Dark Horse.
Oh, let us do. It's sort of the traditional starting point. And they're opening this month with a little rock and roll comics for you. It's on page 40, 3-issue miniseries starring the the thrash metal band Slayer. It's a miniseries called Slayer: Repentless. And I think one of the themes of this month's catalog is going to be licensed comics based on licensed properties about which Adam knows next to nothing. And Slayer is an example of same. I don't know anything about Slayer except that they exist and they're a band. But if you know more about them than I do and you're interested in reading a comic book about them, Dark Horse has got your back.
Well, in high school, there was a brief period where I was flirting a bit with metal and speed metal or thrash metal, whatever designations you want to use. So I listened to a little bit of Slayer. In no way am I an aficionado or an expert on the group, but I do know that their influence is significant. They've been around a long time. Mm-hmm. So again, if you're a fan of that group, I'm sure this will be fun. And Mert, as you mentioned, licensed comics, I mean, more and more, especially in terms of Dark Horse, we're really one of the groundbreakers when it comes to building a stable out of licensed properties. And now IDW, of course, licensed comics are all over. And some are exciting and captivating. Others, are snooze. Just depends on what your taste is and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But
some of them are a little more bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. But again, if you're a fan, let's say Buffy, like again on page 44, as I've always loved Buffy, you get to enjoy her adventures long after the show was ended. So that's always a treat.
Okay. And similar to Buffy, just on the preceding page, actually, there's the first issue of the Angels Season 11 series that Dark Horse is doing. And that is an example of one of these special monthly discounts that Dark Horse is providing. The first issue of that series is 50% off at dcbservice.com.
And then on page 46, the Hellboy Winter Special 2017. So if you're a fan of that character, and I have to admit, I haven't read much Hellboy. I read the first trade some time ago just because I wanted to get a taste of the character. I enjoyed that. I've seen the films, but actually I've only seen the first movie now that I think about it. So the Hellboy is a character where if I had time, which is always a challenge, so I like to explore more because I think the concept is very interesting. But time is always the enemy here.
Yes, is my enemy as well, Chris. I see that Hellboy Winter Special's got some Paul Grist work in it, doing a 1950s Hellboy story. That's a writer-artist whose work I enjoy, with the bits of Jack Staff and Kane and Mudman that I've read here and there. And he made Eric Nolan Wethington's 5 underappreciated creators list. So there's a little more of him to appreciate.
Splendid. I want to mention on page 51, we've been talking on previous episodes about how good the new Jeff Lemire, Dean Ormston, Dave Stewart comic Black Hammer is. And Volume 1 of the trade of issues 1 through 6 is coming out in January. This is an outstanding comic thus far. When we do our awards next year, which I assume you'll be helming again, my friend?
Yes, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, Chris. I've got to be thinking about that in the weeks to come.
Well, honored, and this book will definitely be in the running for me for something because I am devouring this comic. Just kind of a golden age feel, but very much in the sort of world of today. Magnificent book. And the next page is a Black Hammer giant-sized annual with art. Wow! So Lemire's writing. You have art from Dustin Nguyen, Emmy Lennox, Nate Powell, Matt Kint, Ray Fox, and Dave Stewart doing the cover.
Definitely putting that on my list. It's one of relatively few Dark Horse titles I'm actually buying this month, but I will buy the heck out of that one.
Indeed. On page 55, did you read Kingsway West?
Well, I bought it. I can't say that I've read it yet.
So it's in the legendary pile, then?
Yes. Yes.
All right, so if all goes well, let's say maybe 8 to 10 years from now, we'll get your review on Kingsway West.
Oh, I think it's going to be closer to 15 to 17 years, if I'm being honest with myself, Chris. Just settle in.
My friend, looking forward to it. This is a story about it's Greg Pak writing, and I usually enjoy his stories. A Chinese gunslinger named Kingsway Law just wants to live in peace with his wife Sonia, but even a fantastical Old West cracked with magic, a man of his skills can never quite disappear. So when a woman with a red gold sword brings bloody chaos to his doorstep, Kingsway must fight for his life, his wife, and his very soul.
There you go.
Sounds fun.
It's a mystic Western with a Chinese-American flavor to it.
Indeed. Page 56, this is interesting. Dark Horse number ones. So for, let's see, $6, you get reprints of The Umbrella Academy number 1, Hellboy and Hell number 1, Lady Killer 1, Black Hammer 1, Department H number 1, Briggs Land number 1, another amazing book that's come out in 2016, Bounty number 1, and Harrow County number 1. That's a hell of a deal.
Mm-hmm. It's something less than $1 per issue in this collection. And, of course, it's even less than that at dcpservice.com.
I salute Dark Horse. It's a great way to get new readers into, or as they put it, newer curious readers into number ones. Fantastic idea. At a time when it's harder and harder just to get people to read single-issue books. Fantastic they're doing this. I salute them.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
On page 58, again, this is another book that's going to be something in the running for me. We do our nominations. You've got Briggs Land Volume 1, trade, reprinting issues 1 through 6. This is, again, Brian Wood, who just once again proves he can basically write any genre and make it compelling. This is a comic about a secessionist family living in their own private compound in upstate New York. They own so many square miles of acreage, and they're defiant of sort of the authority of the United States government. And this clan or family has sort of drifted over the years into criminal activity. It's how the mother is trying to break away from the sort of gangster-like approach of her husband who's imprisoned. When the book opens, he's in jail, so she takes charge. And it is absolutely gripping. I think it's already been optioned for a television show. It would work very much as a television show. I cannot recommend this book highly enough. I mean, Brian Wood goes from writing, Vikings, Conan, and he's doing this. I mean, the guy think about the book he did, Rebels on the American Revolution. I've yet to see him take on a topic that I have not enjoyed thoroughly. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I believe pretty soon we'll be reading his take on werewolf moonshiners.
Oh no, that's you mean Moonshine? That's
Is that Brian Azzarello?
That's Azzarello, yeah.
Okay, my mistake.
Yep, that's one of the many OTRs we have to catch up on in a future episode.
There it is. Number 4 is solicited in this very catalog. Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Riso. There we go.
Next page, Will Eisner, The Centennial Celebration, 1917 to 2017. So this is another, as far as I'm concerned, you can never have enough dedications or tributes to Will Eisner. This catalog includes original artwork from the landmark Will Eisner Centennial Celebration, which took place in Brian Deemer would love this. I'm going to butcher this, but the Le Musée de la Bande Dessinée. Is that in Belgium?
I honestly don't know where it is, but yeah, Bande Dessinée is it's Franco-Belgian comics, so it's either in France or in Belgium. I think it's safe to say it's one of those places.
Page 60, I got to call this out. Reefer Madness, the trade paperback. Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster, Jerry Robinson, Jack Kirby, Frank Frazetta. Degradation, crime, madness, hysteria surrounding marijuana as a perceived gateway drug for the 1930s, the 1950s, and beyond. Adventure comics by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster and works by Frank Frazetta, Jerry Robinson, Jack Kirby, and many more reveal the social reaction to this era of reefer madness. From comically misinformed to soberly concerned, these comics lament the impact of weed on youth culture. Fascinating timepiece, I have no doubt. Murd, have you ever seen the movie Reefer Madness?
I think I've seen a clip or two, but I haven't seen the entire thing. It's
hysterical. I mean, obviously, it's meant seriously when it was actually produced, but the kids take they sample a little bit of weed, and suddenly they become diabolical juvenile delinquents. It's hysterical. And they did a musical of Reefer Madness, I think sometime in the previous decade. I want to say Kristen Bell was in it, which is hilarious. So I'm sure this is a great timepiece.
Yep, and it's edited and designed by Craig Yo of Yo Books, who's he's sort of developed a reputation for being a quality compiler of compendia of bizarre material of comics past. He usually does it for IDW, so I'm a little surprised to see it here at Dark Horse. But wherever it comes from, it's going to be an interesting and revealing read, just to see the marijuana problem through the lens of the hysterias of decades past.
What else do you have for Dark Horse, my friend?
Well, on the opposite page from Reefer Madness, actually, page 61, we've got a trade paperback of a creator-owned series that was published as single issues from a small publisher called Scout Comics. It's called Hench Girl, and I actually bought and collected the 11 Scout Comics issues of this series. It's written and drawn by Kristen Gudsnuck, and it's about a young lady named Mary Posa, who works as a hench girl for a butterfly-themed supervillain, no relation to the monarch of the Venture Brothers, named Monsieur Butterfly. And it's just about her, the ups and downs of her life. She's really not an evil person. She's a sympathetic character, if not an outright lovable one. And it's about her daily problems, her struggles with sloth, gluttony, and everyday annoyances like paying the rent. And eventually we learn that she's the black sheep of a family that includes a costumed crime fighter or two, and she just kind of fell into henching as a reaction against the unreasonable expectations of trying to compete with this these superstar relatives of hers. So yeah, it's winsome, it's cute, it's fun. It's if you're a fan of books like The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl or Bee and Puppy Cat, then this is a series you will probably enjoy too. If not, you will probably intensely dislike it. But I do give it a recommendation. Kristen Gudsnuck is a creator whose name I think we'll be hearing more often as time passes. I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel doesn't tap her to do some work in the near future.
All right. Anything else for DH?
On page 71, we've got a 7th Astro Boy omnibus, so more of Osamu Tezuka's earliest and possibly most famous work, as Dark Horse continues to reprint all of that.
And I salute them for it.
And on page 68, something a little more Bronze Agey, we've got an Edgar Rice Burroughs' Pellucidar at the Earth's Core trade paperback, which reprints some Tarzan and Tarzan-related material, Burroughs material anyway, that DC put out in the Bronze Age. So it's Korak, Son of Tarzan, #1, and issues 1 through 7 of Weird Worlds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you got Denny O'Neil and Len Wein scripts. You've got Mike W. Kaluta pencils, and Dan Green and Alan Weiss, all underneath a new Mark Schultz pulpy cover.
Fantastic. Makes sense, since Dark Horse has a license for Tarzan because they're doing the wonderful Tarzan, the Planet of the Apes, which I've mentioned before. Mm-hmm. I totally forgot that would give them Korak, too. So
they're taking advantage of that.
DC?
DC, sure.
All right, 76, I am excited. Page 76, that is. The Commandy Challenge #1. Listen to this roll call of glory. All right, so you've got a 12-issue epic, and basically the way it's going to work is, and I'll get to the roll call of glory, is that a creative team will tell a story about Commandy, and then apparently they're going to leave it at a point where the next team has to then pick it up and give their interpretation. So it says each issue will end with an unimaginable cliffhanger, and it's up to the next creative team to resolve before creating their own. Now listen to this roll call. These are the creative teams: Dan Abden and Dale Eaglesham, Peter J. Tomasi and Neil Adams, Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor, James Tynion IV and Carlos Deonda, Bill Willingham and Yvonne Race, Steve Orlando and Philip Tan, Marguerite Bennett and Dan Jurgens, Keith Giffen and Steve Rude, wow, Tom King and Kevin Eastman, Greg Pak and Joe Prado, Rob Williams and Walter Simonson, Gail Simone and Ryan Sook, Len Wein and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. Peter is salivating. Wow. Yeah. In for every single issue. How about you, Murd?
My goodness. Well, it's very, very tempting, Chris. I mean, a roll call of greatness is absolutely right. I mean, some of these creative teams are just mouth-wateringly great. Kamandi is a character I've always found semi-interesting, but he's never been one of my favorites. And it does look like this is going to be a fairly expensive series to collect, since it's the first issue at least is 40 pages with a $4.99 cover price.
True, yep.
So it's greatness, but it's greatness that's not going to come cheap. So a trade weight might be in order here. But I am especially excited about the DC returning after 30 years to the round robin maxi series experimental format of storytelling. As seen in the classic DC challenge that they attempted back in 1985-86. It was running concurrently with Crisis. I think it began like a couple of months before Crisis #1 hit shelves, and so it was technically outside of continuity, but it definitely made use of certain pre-Crisis story elements, parallel Earths and such. But that was done in the same format, like different creative team each issue, and each creative team was forced to resolve whatever cliffhanger the preceding creative team had left for them. So it was a glorious mess, that maxi series, but I remember it fondly. It's my kind of gimmick, and it was told the people involved really wanted to do it. They apparently took then publisher Dick Giordano up on a roof and threatened to throw him off if he didn't approve their plan to do this maxi series. So hopefully Dan DiDio didn't come under any such threat to get this thing done, especially since he's actually a contributing writer to the first issue. So it's that roll call of greatness you mentioned, Chris, does end with the words "and more." So there are other creators other than what's listed here, but I think Dan DiDio probably qualifies as one of those because he's co-writing this first issue with Dan Abnett, which makes me a little bit uneasy. But still, hey, Dan Abnett, Dale Eaglesham, and many, many more.
Yes.
And you know what? It's 50% off at dcbservice.com. So those of you listening at home, you want to try and take a gamble on the first issue at a lower introductory price. That could be your chance.
And a wonderful Bruce Timm cover here. And again, if listeners are not familiar with Kamandi, this is one of Jack King Kirby's concepts when he was working for DC in the early 70s, heavily influenced by Planet of the Apes. Sort of the last human boy in a far, far future Earth where everything has been devastated in terms of human civilization, right down to the fallen Statue of Liberty, and there's anthropomorphic animals who are now dominating this world. And again, a lot of great Kirby concepts in play in the original, which has been reprinted in various forms over the years. I'm not sure what version of reprint it's in now, but great stuff. So, okay, let's milk it. Justice League versus Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm. Continuing.
All right, we'll move past that.
Yeah.
Now we have more. I'm sorry, Mer, go ahead.
I think I was about to. You go ahead, Chris. I think I was.
I was to say that we have a new round of rebirths to look at here. So.
Yeah, it looks like there are these four are one shots.
Yeah. The Atom, Vixen, the Ray, Killer Frost.
Yep.
So
all four of them either written or co-written by Steve Orlando, and
yes.
The two of them that feature female lead characters he gets a script assist from Jody Hauser, writer of Valiant's Faith. And
so if you're a fan of those characters, you get a chance to see them given the rebirth treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think this is the second version of the Ray we've seen since Flashpoint. Probably going to be a cooler version than the last one we got.
I want to mention on page 86, I've lauded this before, but I want to give it some extra special love here. I am just devouring the new Aquaman series written by Dan Abnett. He's really exploring the power dynamic and the politics between Atlantis and the surface world. Great use of Black Manta. He's really also exploring the dynamics of the relationship between Mera and Arthur. This is top-flight Aquaman stuff. So if you really enjoy the Jeff Johns New 52 Aquaman, which I certainly did, I think you'll enjoy this effort. I recommend giving it a shot. Really well done.
Page
what
88?
else jumps out at you? I'm sorry, Mer, go ahead.
In Batgirl number 7 on page 88, start of a new arc introducing us to the son of the Penguin.
Huh.
Next generation Batman rogue there. Let's see,
I want to mention on page... Go ahead, Mert, I'm sorry.
Page 90, Batman number 15, is a Batman and Swamp Thing crossover, written, as usual, by Tom King.
Can't go wrong with Mr. King. Let's see. Anything else you want to in the sort of the main DCU characters?
Well, let's see. Page 93, Deathstroke number 11. We've got a Creeper appearance. Always worth mentioning to me. Page 94, a new arc in Detective Comics, starting in number 948. Batwoman Begins. Giving us a little insight into the post-Flashpoint origins, I suppose, of Kate Kane, the Batwoman, and also introducing us to a new neighborhood in Gotham City. Apparently, during the recent Night of the Monster Men crossover, the corpse of a giant monster ended up falling into Gotham Harbor, and the people of Gotham have decided to build a neighborhood around it. So that's kind of changed the landscape of Gotham City for the stranger. We'll just see how long the Bat writers remember that that's there. But for the time being, get to see James Tynion IV and Marguerite Bennett and artist Ben Oliver explore that.
Again, I want to mention on page 110 how much I've been enjoying Greg Rucka's Wonder Woman, art and cover by the wonderful Nicola Scott. Forgive me if I mispronounced that name. What's great about Wonder Woman is you're basically getting 2 stories a month. So they're doing a new version of sort of Wonder Woman Year One, and then they're doing a story taking place in the current continuity. Both are excellent. And I really enjoyed Rucka's one take on Wonder Woman when he did it several years ago, which has since been collected in trade. And this one is equally and thoroughly enjoyable.
It looks like we've got a new story arc starting in number 15, where Wonder Woman becomes conscious in some way of alterations made to her life and history, and she goes a little crazy. But,
now, do you want to hazard a guess this has something to do with what appeared in the original Rebirth one-shot?
It would be cool if it did. It doesn't need to, but it's Rucka. It'll be good no matter what it is.
Well, that's a given.
But, yeah, I just kind of like the idea that we're toying with the concept of retcons, and I'm pretty sure there'll be some kind of meta level to this story. You know, what happens to comic book icons when their history gets tweaked and tweaked and tweaked and tweaked so many times until its head is practically twisted right off.
Yeah.
Oh, and back
go ahead, Murray.
I got to go back to page 105 quick here. It's Superman number 14 and 15. Writer Peter J. Tomasi treats us to a multiversal Superman story. Featuring the team Justice Incarnate, which I'm pretty sure is the super team of inter-universal champions introduced in Grant Morrison's Multiversity. So here's Peter Tomasi. He's going to be brave and bold enough to come closer than any other DC writer so far, I think, to working with the concepts established by Morrison in that series. So more power to him. Oh, and on page 108, speaking of things spinning out of the DCU Rebirth one-shot, Chris, we've got the pre-Flashpoint Wally West and the pre-Flashpoint Superman meeting up for the first time here in the post-Flashpoint reality.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Titans
I didn't catch that. Well done, Murd. I got to read that. Wow. Awesome. I want to move on to – you got to go to page 115.
Yes, I think we do.
Look at that Alex Ross art. The Bat Shield. So, the title says it all. Batman 66 meets Wonder Woman 77. That's all I need. I'm going to read this. I mean, Plus, look at this creative team written by Jeff Parker, who did Batman 66, and Mark Andreyko, who's a writer I enjoy. And I think he did the Wonder Woman 77, didn't he?
He was one of the creators who did, yeah.
Yeah. Art by David Hahn and Carl Kiesel, cover by Mike Allred. This is going to be fun. I mean, come on.
Yeah, honestly, Chris, I didn't even read down as far as the creative team. I just saw the concept and put my little check mark next to it, which is my way of telling myself, order this.
This is definitely a book I'm sure we'll be discussing once it comes in. By the way, I just watched the third Supergirl episode. Are you current with Supergirl?
I'm 2 episodes behind at this point. I started to watch last week's earlier today, but didn't get more than a few minutes in.
Oh, you're ahead of me. So you saw the president, right?
Yes, I did see the president.
Oh, so I had such a beaming grin on my face. I said, boys, it's Wonder Woman.
Yeah, you should see her other jet.
Exactly. Interesting, speaking of licensing, on page 116, Justice League Power Rangers.
That is extremely interesting, yes.
Well, there's a Power Rangers live-action movie coming out.
Another one, eh?
Yeah, I saw the coming attraction. I went to see Doctor Strange. They're giving it the big screen, I'm assuming high-budget treatment. So, Mert, I thought of you on page 118. The Fall and Rise of Captain Atom, written by Cary Bates.
Mm-hmm.
Who I believe wrote The Trial of the Flash, correct?
Yes, he did. He wrote
Yeah.
he wrote the Flash for a good long time there in the the latter half of the Bronze Age, and he also wrote the post-crisis Captain Atom series.
So is this a book you're going to pick up then?
I'm strongly considering it. Yeah, I'll probably preview this on the shelf before I commit to buying it. But it is only a 6-issue miniseries, and I guess this is a way of going back to a past master of the character to try to redeem a character who's become, no pun intended, slightly radioactive, thanks to what was done with him, post Flashpoint. So maybe we'll redeem the good captain a little bit.
Well, I know you've always enjoyed the character, so I thought of you immediately when I saw that solicitation.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for thinking of me.
Of course. Anything else before we hit the trades?
No, I don't think so.
All right. As always, DC's releasing some very interesting trades from across their history. So we've got, in more recent stuff, Action Comics Volume 1 by Jurgens. This collects Action Comics 957 and 962. Wonder Woman Volume 1, The Lies. So this is going into the current Wonder... No, actually, wait. Is it? Yeah, it's the current Wonder Woman written by Greg Rucka. So those are worth picking up for sure. Batgirl: A Celebration of 50 Years hardcover. So stuff by Gardner Fox, Chuck Dixon, Kelly Puckett, Gail Simone. Art by Carmine Infantino, Marcus Martin, Damian Scott, Cameron Stewart, Babs Tarr. So if they're including Babs Tarr, they're going right from the beginning all the way through to the present with this character. So it's a $40 book, 384 pages. That's actually a good deal. So if you're a Batgirl fan, that's probably well worth picking up. And sorry, let me shut down my cell phone there. My apologies. More Golden Age omnibuses for Batman on page 129, volume 3 of the hardcover. Again, I want to point out how pleased I am. Whenever I see references to Batman now, they say, created by the charlatan with Bill Finger. I think it should be and Bill Finger, but still, it's at least his name is where it is in the semblance of where it should be.
Right.
And we had the reprinting now in softcover, Batman the Golden Age Volume 2. Again, these are replacements, I'm assuming, for the old Chronicle line that DC was doing for several years. So they're these larger, handsomely packaged collections of the Golden Age origins of all their icons. Peter would love this on page 130, Batman and the Outsiders Volume 1. I've had enough of your 2-bit Justice League. From now on, these are my new partners. So says Batman to a stunned and crestfallen Look how sad Wonder Woman looks as he chews her out. This is Batman the Outsiders 1 through 12, Brave and the Bold 200, and New Teen Titans 37. 344 pages for $50.
Not bad.
Are you a fan of the Cosmic Odyssey story by Starlin?
I can't answer that until I've actually read it, Chris. But it's
Okay, I've never read it either.
Written by Starlin, art by Mike Mignola, so it's got to be at least an interesting read. And in the DC universe, where Starlin has done less of his famous work than in the Marvel universe. But I do have the constituent issues in my backlog.
Of course.
And now it's being released in a deluxe edition hardcover for the first time.
Again, I want to salute DC on page 134, continuing to reprint the classic Wolfman Perez New Teen Titans. This is volume 6. These are, to me, this is one of the all-time great series of the 1980s, New Teen Titans. Page 135, Wonder Woman, Her Greatest Battles. Stories by Perez, Byrne, Rucka, Simone, Johns, Azzarello. Can't go wrong with that. Page 136, my friend. Future Quest Volume 1.
Wonderful stuff.
1 through 6. That I'm going to pick up because I missed one of the issues, and I want to read the story in its entirety. So.
Yes, just this Hanna-Barbera action cartoon a-go-go series, and this is how you work with these characters. This is the right thing to do with these characters. Jeff Parker established just the perfect tone with this series, and he has not lost sight of it since then.
I look forward to reading it. I'm jumping ahead to Vertigo, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
On page 140, some interesting trades. The Invisibles Book 1. This is one of Grant Morrison's, I think one of his greatest works. Have you read The Invisibles, Mer? Because it's right up your alley.
I have read the first issue and only the first issue.
And did you like it or no?
Yep, I liked it. It's something I've always intended to return to. sometime, but never actually have.
Well, they're giving it their book treatment, where Vertigo repackages a lot of their classic series in these larger trade paperbacks. So this gets you issues 1 through 12. This series, there's a couple different incarnations of the Invisibles. I did not read the first incarnation. I'm guessing from the cover art this is the second, although don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. Someone will correct me on the forums. But I was immediately taken with it. It's very trippy. It gets very much into conspiracy theories, and as the book progresses, it becomes increasingly non-linear, the storytelling. I remember in a later volume, like the issue numbers are going backwards. LSD definitely plays a role in some of these stories. I don't mean in terms of Morrison himself, but maybe he was, but in terms of what's going on inside the stories. Yeah. It's wild, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Murr, did you read Kid Eternity, which I've never read?
The original miniseries, is in my pile, but the rest of it I have not read. No, I haven't read any of the ongoing Vertigo series.
This is Ann Nocenti, art and cover by Sean Phillips, issues 1 through 9. All right, I am ready for IDW if you are, sir.
All right, then. Onward into the breach.
Now, Murd, earlier you were talking about licensed products, and woo! IDW is going full bore on that.
Well, it's been their stock and trade for a long time.
Yep, and more power to them. We're gonna review when we do our Super OTR episode, the Mask Revolution issue. I'm sure Shane is watering at the mouth for that one. So that we've got stories. The Revolution story is overlapping all the licensed properties: Transformers, G.I. Joe, and ROM Space Knight, and perhaps others. So if you're an '80s kid, IDW is your home. You got Micronauts, G.I. Joe, Mask, Transformers,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Ghostbusters, My Little Pony, Back to the Future, Gem and the Holograms. They have Star Trek.
Strawberry Shortcake.
Yep. So all of you guys and gals out there in your 40s, IDW is your company. There's got to be at least one licensed property that will bring you back, nostalgically. It's got to be in there. I wanted to point out on page 174, I've always been a champion of Alex Robinson's work, and one of his great masterpieces, Box Office Poison, which is available in an all-inclusive trade, and has been for many years. Now they're releasing it again in a monthly form, but in color. So originally at Box Office Poison, I want to say it was originally through Antarctic Press. Don't quote me on that. And now Top Shelf has it, but they're reissuing the series in color. And let me tell you, anyone who remembers the sort of post-college netherworld, or even if you didn't go to college, that netherworld of like your 20s. And if you remember that, and if you can feel it viscerally still years later, you got to read this book. The man just nails what life is like then, people's priorities or sensibilities, their relationships, trials and tribulations, anxiety, insecurity, wasted talent. It's all here. Definitely one of the best independent comics I've ever read. Highest recommendation.
And it's 50% off at dcbservice.com.
Well done, my friend. Thank you. All right, on page 181, excuse me, Tales from the Dark Side of the hardcover. Now, we reviewed the first issue as an OTR, which I enjoyed thoroughly, by Joe Hill, Gabriel Rodriguez, with the team behind Lock and Key. And this is a 4-issue miniseries. I'm going to get this because I want to read the other 3. Murr, did you read the rest or no?
Well, not as thoroughly as I might, but yeah, I wanted to go back and see what the what we weren't getting from the first issue, what the hidden hook for the 4-issue series was going to be.
Page 183, Pansy, this is for you. Another artist edition of EC stories by Reed Crandall. Look at that art.
He is one of the greats.
I have a little library of my own artist editions, and someday I just want to find the time to sit down on my floor and just go through one. I mean, I've looked through all of them, but just one after another. I can't salute IDW enough for being in the vanguard of this movement, of bringing reproductions of original art, because let's face it, most of us can't afford original art. I mean, it's just through the roof at this point. So this is the next best thing.
I'm going to give a shout-out to a book being solicited just opposite that on page 182. This is another offering from Craig Yo and Yo Books. It's called Behaving Madly, Zany, Loco, Cockeyed Rip-Off Satire Magazines. So it's a collection of humor work done by various artists, some of whom are very well-known. For off-brand satire magazines that were trying to compete with or outright plagiarize Mad Magazine. In fact, one looks like there's one called Bad down here at the bottom, which was just a blatant. It was like a satire of a satire, pretty much, just trying to riff on Mad's stranglehold on satirical humor magazines of the time. So we've got artwork by Jack Davis, of course, was a mainstay of Mad itself. We've also got Al Jaffe, another one. This is Bill Everett, Steve Ditko, Basil Littleton, Ross Andrew, Joe Kubert, Kirby himself, Russ Heath, Dick Briefer, Bill Ward, Lee Elias. Yeah, these are some well-known names here, and this is some of the satirical work they did, which is lesser known because it was done for lesser-known publications that were kind of trapped in the shadow of Mad. So there's going to be some interesting obscurities in there.
And writing by Stan Lee and Jerry Siegel, among others. But the roll call of greatness here, and art-wise, is amazing. Joe Maneely, I love Ross Andrew, as you mentioned. Wow. Howard Post. Incredible. Good pick, Murd. On to Image. Anything else for IDW?
Yeah, let's go ahead to Image. Why not? Okay, and starting us off here for Image on page 190, we've got a new series called Curse Words, written by fan favorite Charles Soule, art by Ryan Brown, and it's about a bad boy motorcycle riding wizard who roars into New York City one day. Planning to change people's lives with his magic, and nobody seems to suspect, at least at first, that he's actually an evil wizard. And the blessings he confers are actually curses. So it's kind of like a renegade biker wizard story, and it looks like fun.
And Charles Soule is a fine writer, so that's probably worth picking up.
Yep, and if you do it at dcpservice.com, it's 50% off.
As is always the case with Image, and I always salute them, every month you get new number ones, you get books that are covering every conceivable genre of storytelling you can imagine, which again, why I think Image is the top company right now in comics. And again, a lot of it is creator-owned, which is even better. So look, we have on page 192, The Few, number 1, story by Sean Lewis, art by Hayden Sherman. Team great artist Aidan Sherman for Limited Maxi Series. The Few combines Mad Max action with a Station 11 sensibility in the sci-fi series for mature readers. In a dystopian future, two survivalists brothers stumble across an unlikely sight. A woman asleep in the woods holding nothing but a gun and a baby wearing a gas mask. Interesting. As these boys begin to embark on helping this woman, betrayals, secrets, and revolutions abound in the fight for what's left of America.
A woman asleep in the woods holding a gun and a baby wearing a gas mask. Yeah, that is a haunting image.
Indeed. Page 194, God's Country, number 1. Story Downey Cates, art Jeff Shaw, Jason Wordie, John J. Hill. Emmett Quinlan, an old widower rattled by dementia. It is a problem for his children. His violent outbursts are more than the local cops can handle. When a tornado levels his home as well as the surrounding West Texas town, a restored Quinlan rises from the wreckage. The enchanted sword of the eye of the storm gives him more than a sound mind and body, however. He is now the only man who can face the otherworldly creatures the sword has drawn down to the Lone Star State. And a testimonial from Brian Michael Bendis.
It's like Elder Gods are coming to Texas.
Indeed. On page 196, Loose Ends, number 1 of 4. Jason Latour, art by Chris Brunner, Rico Renzi. No one seemed to notice Sonny Gibson as he stepped back into the, quote, the hideaway, end quote, a dusty little honky-tonk nestled off the Carolina highway. Before the night was over, Sonny would be on the run, from the law, from the criminals, even from himself. Jason Latour is the co-creator of Southern Bastards, which is one of the best series out today, which is written by the great Jason Aaron. Excuse me. So, I'm sure this is worth reading. Now, I'm very excited about the next book on page 198. It's a one-shot called Dante. Story by Matt Hawkins and Jason Ning, and art by an artist I've always enjoyed thoroughly, Derek Robinson of Transmetropolitan fame. It's about an assassin who keeps his criminal life separate from his family, have no idea that he's actually involved as a gun for hire, and how these two lives are going to intersect and the mayhem that ensues. I mean, that's kind of a plot line we've heard before in different media, but the art looks fantastic. So I'm definitely interested to see how the story turns out. All right. I want to mention on page 203, we reviewed the first issue of Kill or Be Killed, and I think it's one of Brubaker and Phillips' most interesting works thus far, because it's really a deconstruction of the cost of vigilantism. And the trade is being solicited the first, I want to say, how many issues? Forgive me. The first 4 is being solicited, I think, in the trade in this previews as well. Incredible book. I'll tell you right now, I think Sean Phillips is doing the artwork of his career in this story. I can't recommend it highly enough. That's Kill or Be Killed. What else you got for Image, Mert?
I don't think I have anything else, actually, Chris.
Well, again, a lot of the great series we've talked about many times that are, which is great. They're all ongoing. They're all still in there kicking. Southern Bastards, which we mentioned. Saga, of course, needs no more further explanation. Celia Knight, Mike Norton's Revival, still going strong. We're going to talk about, when it comes out, we're going to talk about the first issue of Moonshine by Azzarello and Eduardo Risso, which is the famous 100 Bullets team. There's a lot of great stuff here. Image is just knocking it out of the park. Black Science by Rick Remender. Wicked and the Divine, which I've yet to read, but I hear is fantastic, story by Kieran Gillen. Just good stuff. I love creator-owned comics. Because someday they will end. And that just adds more gravitas to it for me as a reader. All right, well, let's move on to Marvel.
All right. Right there with you. And the big news from them for this month on pages 2 and 3 of their Marvel Previews subcatalog is the Monsters Unleashed 5-issue miniseries and attendant crossover event, which is...
I thought of you immediately when I saw this.
Oh, well. And well you should, Chris. So I do enjoy some giant Marvel monsters. And so we've got a few classics involved in this story and also a few newly created, Lee Kirby or Lee Ditko style Atlas-era monsters. Fin Fang Foom prominently displayed here. So it's a bunch of Marvel characters, Marvel heroes who get to go up against giant monsters for a couple of months. It seems a little bit gimmicky, but in the best possible way. This is the kind of gimmicky that I enjoy. I'm probably going to stay away from the tie-in, the special tie-in issues they're doing, like the ongoing series that suddenly acquire an issue number 1.mu to tie into the Monsters Unleashed event. But I will absolutely buy and read and probably love the main series, which is written by Cullen Bunn, who's also writing that Curse Words we were just talking about a minute ago, and art and cover by Steve McNiven.
Great artist, and I just think it's a fun concept. I mean, I'm assuming it's not going to have a lot of, earnest gravity, which is probably going to be a fun story, I would think. Sure,
heroes versus monsters. That's all you need.
And look at the wonderful variant cover by Francesco Francavilla on page 5. Monstrum, the dweller in the black swamp.
Yes. Yeah, just
fantastic.
Sucked my eye right in there. It's got just the right flavor. Unusual timing for something like this. I mean, they don't usually launch crossover events like this in January, do they?
Not that I can recall, but hey, if there's something fun to read in January, I'm all for it, since that's a retail desert. So, On page 8, the Mighty Captain Marvel #1. So again, we're talking about the Carol Danvers iteration of Captain Marvel. Margaret Stoll writing. Ramon Rosanas is doing the art. I'm sorry to say I have not been keeping up with Captain Marvel, but I've heard that Danvers' Captain Marvel's book has been very good. I know Danielle's a fan of it, and usually that's enough for me because her taste is usually outstanding. So this is something I have to catch up on. Beautiful variant covered by Alex Ross. What do you think of U.S. Avengers 1 on page 10 there, Murd?
Yeah. Well, I think it's something I'm probably not going to buy because I've all but given up trying to keep up with the half a dozen different Avengers squads that Marvel is presenting their own series month in and month out. It looks like there's probably going to be a satirical dimension to it, sort of a send-up of runaway capitalism and the American military-industrial entertainment complex. We've got a character called the Golden Skull who seems to be symbolizing all of that, and an interesting assemblage of members of this team. I mean, we've got a Red Hulk who's actually sporting the Thunderbolt Ross mustache. Looks like a new Iron Patriot, female one this time. Looks like the Miss America of the Young Avengers, and of course Squirrel Girl front and center. I really don't. I'm not sure why she was chosen for involvement in this team, but she's there, and I will say that I like the way Paco Medina draws her. This is probably one that I'm not going to buy, but there it is.
If I remember correctly, didn't Al Ewing write that wonderful Mighty Avengers story about Luke Cage's father in the 70s?
I think he did, yes.
Yeah, which I read this past summer, which I thoroughly enjoyed because, again, it had such a early 70s feel to it. The guy can definitely write. I want to mention on page 12, I mentioned this before, but what the hell, it deserves to be praised to the stars. The Mighty Thor by Aaron and Dowderman. Again, this is the Jane Foster version of Thor. It just wonderful. Every month in, month out, I've never been disappointed by Aaron's now lengthy take on the Thor character and his world. And apparently now the Asgardians are going to war with the Shi'ar. So
Wow.
That could be gimmicky, but not in the hands of Aaron. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
One character. I'm sorry, Murd. Go ahead.
No, I'm just. I hadn't even noticed that aspect of the story. That as Asgard versus the Shi'ar Empire. That's enough to turn my head.
Indeed. One area where I'm sorry to say I'm so lacking now. I'm having a really hard time keeping up with Spider-Man, who, besides the Black Panther, is my favorite superheroic character in comics and always has been since I was a child. But I'm probably maybe a year behind in my reading of the Flag title by Dan Slott, which I'm enjoying, but I'm just so far behind on it. I have no idea what's going on with the Miles Morales character, except for the fact that I know he's in the main Marvel U.S. and Secret Wars. It's funny, there comes a point in my reading life now where I'm almost ready to give up on certain titles. I just don't know if I'll ever be able to actually catch up to them. And if I'm just buying for the sake of buying, even at my discount, I may have to make some tough choices in the weeks and months to come. No, not tough choices like, matters of, life or death, but in terms of being a comic reader, having to say farewell to certain characters can be difficult, but we'll see if I can make up some time. But Spidey I've fallen way behind on. Now, again, a lot of this is, ongoing stuff. The Wasp is getting her own book on page 26. But this apparently is not Janet Van Dyne.
A brand new Wasp. Russian, apparently. Nadia by name. A captive of the Red Room, which...
Train the Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
Hank Pym's daughter. Oh, okay. Well, that's to be expected. Says the MCU.
Yes.
Let's see. Inhumans versus X-Men. We'll talk about that when issue 1 comes out. Look on page 39. This is, again, I'm so far behind on Spider-Man. Captivating Alex Ross image. Slott and Christos Gage writing. Gwen Stacy is back in the land of the living and is in league with the Jackal. My head just exploded. All right. I've got to catch up.
Yeah, it involves clones.
I know they're doing the whole... They're returning to the clone saga in a sense, but Slott's at the helm, so I'm assuming it's worth reading.
I liked
we'll
the first issue pretty well. Jackal has definitely...
You read it? Okay.
Yeah, he's upped his game a little bit.
Oh, that sounds great. Okay.
Yep, he's kind of taunting Spider-Man now with the immortality of everybody in his life. He's adopted he wears a business suit with a Anubis mask now. It's kind of a new angle on the whole jackal thing. So he less the predatory scavenging animal and more the ancient Egyptian god of death and resurrection. And so he's taunting Spider-Man with the fact that now he's got something that he's always wanted. Nobody dies on his watch. So he's created clones of every villain Spider-Man's ever fought that have died. And that's what's going on with the clone conspiracy.
All right. Well, just when you thought they couldn't cash in anymore on Deadpool, on page 40, this piques my interest. It's Deadpool the Duck. And they even give you the math equation here. Deadpool plus Howard equals Deadpool the Duck. I don't know what else to say, but it could be fun. Stuart Moore writing. What I know is fun, because I just read the first issue, on page 42, all you need to hear are these two names, Mark Waid and Barry Kitson, who did the classic JLA Year One. They're doing Avengers number 0.1. Basically, it's stories in between the Silver Age stories, and these deal with the beginnings of Cap's kooky quartet when the original Avengers all take leaves of absence. And it's Cap with the Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Hawk. I read the first issue. I'm going to talk about when we do our next OTR super episode. Fantastic. Once again, Mark Waid, as far as I'm concerned, is a treasure of the comic book industry, as is Barry Kitson.
I love how he's getting away with basically nesting a second monthly Avengers title in between the issues of the one that he's supposed to be writing. So,
and if you're a fan of Avengers Silver Age, that vibe, you will love this stuff. Can't recommend it enough.
Yep. If you like JLA Year One by the same creative team,
yes,
it's the same idea.
Now, Merge, you're a fan of the Great Lakes Avengers, aren't you?
Yes. And I
so
did...
page 48, their series is continuing issue 4 there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I have seen issue number 1, and it's the humor is a little forced in it, but still, I'm still going to continue buying it.
All right.
Back on page 44, Nick Spencer's run on Captain America, Sam Wilson. Yes, this hey, remember the 90s thing that he's been doing continues, because now he's brought back Rage and introduced a brand new street-level champion named the Falcon to take on the mantle that Sam Wilson doffed when he became the new Captain America.
I'm enjoying Spencer's take on the Sam Wilson character. It can get political. It may turn some people off. But I just enjoy the fact that Sam is trying to basically carve his own path as Captain America. I want to shout out again on page 70, Power Man and Iron Fist by Walker and Green. Another book that's going to be in my running for various nominations of CGS Awards. This book is immensely fun, has so much heart, and so gets to the core of what makes the Power Man and Iron Fist team so engaging, charming, and charismatic. And again, the history is there. Fantastic. What a wonderful book. And, of course, in page 71, if you're not reading Aaron and Pachalo's Doctor Strange, you should be. Tremendous. Really is reverent to the history, but, putting their own take on it. Can't recommend it enough. Doctor Strange has arrived when he gets to team up with the Punisher on page 72.
Magic Bullets.
Yep.
It's a great title.
Also want to mention on page 80, the Silver Surfer series by Slott and Allred. What another gem. This book, I've yet to read an issue by that I haven't devoured. There's really no other book quite like it. Certainly among what Marvel's doing. Just such a refreshing new look at such an iconic character. Wonderful. And again, I'm saying this pointedly above that, The Punisher 9, written by the very talented Becky Cloonan, art by the late, great Steve Dillon. God, so sucks he passed.
It's just, I guess we should be thankful that there's still some new Steve Dillon comics that have yet to reach us.
Indeed. Got anything else for Marvel, my friend?
Well, anything in the trade pages towards the back.
That's where I was going to go, unless you had more other single issues to shout out for.
Nothing else in single issues from me, so let's go to trades.
Well, Murd, you got to go to page 105 for you.
Oh, naturally. Monsters. Monsters. The
Marvel Monster Bus.
By Stan Lee, his brother Larry Lieber, and the great Jack Kirby. And right there on the front cover, Groot, the monster from Planet X, who originally did say things other than I am and Groot.
Indeed. Listen to this. So you got Strange Tales Unusual 1955, number 7. Astonishing 56, World of Fantasy 15 through 19. These are all from the Atlas era. Strange Worlds 1, 3, 4, and 5. Strange Tales 67 to 70. 72 to 86, During the Mystery. This is all classic Atlas stuff before the Marvel Age. If you have the 100, well, it'll be less on DCB service, but it's $100 SRP. If you're a fan of comic history, this is something worth getting because they're just so immensely fun and absurd. And again, you're seeing Kirby art from the 50s, Stan Lee having a ball, making up all these ridiculous names. Which one was the Living Hill, Murd?
Spragg.
Yes, fantastic. Now I'm very excited on page 106. The Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 3. This collects issues 68 to 104. Stan Lee with Roy Thomas. And again, these are just all giants. John Romita Sr., Gil Kane, and John Buscema. Also, Jim Mooney's in there, too. They should have mentioned his name. For me, this is the era where Stan Lee, I think, writes some of his best stories on his 100-issue run. He wrote Spider-Man for just over 100 issues overall. Issue 68 is the classic Crisis on Campus. Kingpin story with the mystical tablet that everyone wants to get their hands on. And this is just a classic era. Like all the thrusters are firing here. The humor, the supporting cast, Peter's interaction with Gwen Stacy, with his villains, the classic drug issue with the Green Goblin in here. I cannot wait to have this in my library. Even though I already have all these issues in other reprint forms, excuse my French, I don't give a shit. I want this again in this beautiful omnibus format because these are some of the greatest Spider-Man stories ever put to page. So, highest recommendation. All right, what else do we got here in trays? A lot of the typical hardcovers reprinting recent story arcs. Let's see anything more quirky is going to jump out at me here.
On page 122, this kind of made me smile, or smirk, perhaps is a better word for it. Deadpool and the Secret Defenders. How Marvel gets people to pay $30 for issues 15 through 25 of the Secret Defenders by putting Deadpool's name on the cover. Because I'm 90% certain that Deadpool did not appear in all 11 of the issues that are collected in this trade volume. And I have a personal, sort of a mildly nostalgic soft spot for this series. I thought it was a good idea that just never got utilized the way it deserved to be, and it just kind of turned into dreck by the end. But I don't necessarily recommend this to anybody, but it's just kind of interesting marketing on Marvel's part there.
Of course. Deadpool represents dollar signs. Now I want to put out some of their great epic collections. On page 127, Iron Man, the classic Lee, Roy Thomas, Archie Goodwin, Gene Colan, Kirby Heck material from Tales of Suspense, 73-99. The Iron Man and Submariner one-shot. Again, they did this one-shot before they put both of these characters in their own books. Iron Man, of course, the classic Iron Man #1 Gene Colan cover, which was he was given his own series, and then Submariner got his own series. Submariner #1, the classic John Buscema cover, and the Tales of Suspense numbering turned over to Captain America 100, classic Kirby cover. Next page, we've got Daredevil, the Epic Collection. Kevin Moyer, where are you? Lee, Thomas, I'm getting palpitations. Colan, Windsor Smith, Daredevil 42 to 63, the height of Silver Age greatness. Be there. That's all I have to say. Just classic. Clark Cloak and Dagger, the Bill Mantlo, Al Milgrom, Chris Claremont stuff getting reprinted.
Mm-hmm. Does that include their first appearance?
Let's take a look. Spectacular Spider-Man 64, I think so. Is that their first? I want to say they first appeared in Spectacular Spider-Man 64. Spectacular Spider-Man because Mantlo was writing it.
Seems right to me. Just another second will give us the answer. Yep, there it is. Spectacular Spider-Man number 64 is indeed their first appearance. So this is early Cloak and Dagger stuff all in one handy little volume.
Last thing I want to say about Marvel, unless you have something else to say, Murd, is on page 139. Shane will appreciate this. Marvel is now reprinting the newspaper strips by Russ Manning, Gerber, Helm, Archie Goodwin, penciled by Russ Manning, Alfredo Alcala, and Al Williamson, which is Al Williamson's Star Wars art is amazing. We've talked about this in one of our – I think we might have talked about when we did our Star Wars the Marvel Years Spotlight last December. The Dark Horse reprinted these as classic Star Wars in various iterations, and now Marvel's collected them all in one trade. These are outstanding. $40, 472 pages. That's a damn good deal right there. Anything else from Marvel, my friend?
Don't think that's going to cover it from my perspective.
All right. Now, unfortunately, I've only got about 20 minutes left. I'm on kid pickup duty tonight, so let's get to the other part of the book.
All right, let's just march right ahead here.
Get through it as best we can. We'll be on page 248. We'll be talking about Motor Girl #1, Terry Moore's new property. Again, when we do our super OTR, and I can give a preview by saying I have nothing but good things to say about that. Let's see. Anything in Aftershock you want to talk about, Murd?
Well, for Pants' sake, there's a new Animosity. I'm not sure if it's the first issue of a new series or just a one-shot, but it's Animosity is a series about a mysterious event that makes animals sentient. Gives them the ability to think and speak on a human level, and some of them become even closer allies of humanity than before, but many of them turn against them. And so Pants was entranced by this series, written by Marguerite Bennett, and now there's a Animosity: The Rise on page 257. So some more of that to enjoy.
All right. I always have to mention, I'm skipping way ahead to page 286, Avatar, Garth Ennis' War Stories. I have yet to read military comic by Garth Ennis. I have not devoured. I think his military writing is some of his strongest. It's moving. He knows his stuff. He does his history homework. If you're into military history, if you especially World War II, this is the comic for you.
All right. I knew you couldn't resist talking about that.
Of course.
Back on page 276 from Archie, there is a new #1 issue for Riverdale. It's a one.
Yes.
It is a one-shot which ties into the upcoming Riverdale TV series. It's written by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, who I'm pretty sure is going to be some kind of executive producer or something on that TV series when it's released. Art by Alitha Martinez, and it's a collection of 4 short stories giving us insights into various characters as they will be depicted on that TV show.
I got to give props to Archie for really, talk about taking that property in just I don't know if it's a new direction, but just sort of reinvigorating it and just putting a new spin on it. You got the whole zombie approach in Afterlife with Archie. Mark Waid did wonderful stuff. Again, kudos.
See, page 289, we've got something from Black Mask Studios. It sounds interesting to me. It's called The Dregs #1. It describes itself as the first homeless meta-noir ever made. And it's a drug-addled murder mystery story about a homeless man who's trying to solve the mystery of the disappearances of his fellow homeless. Equal parts Raymond Chandler and Don Quixote, set in a thriving metropolis that literally cannibalizes the homeless. And the imagery suggests that there is indeed some cannibalism happening, like the 1% are literally dining on the flesh of these vanishing homeless people, and it's up to one crack-brained gumshoe that's trying to find the answers. So, seems like a interesting premise, to say the least.
2 things I want to mention. I'm going ahead to Dynamite here. I can't emphasize enough how good their James Bond adaptations have been. The main series written by Warren Ellis is one of the best interpretations of Bond I've enjoyed in any medium. Cold, charming, ruthless, hardcore James Bond. And then the new miniseries Hammerhead by Andy Diggle, who wrote The Losers, is also fantastic. And now they're doing a miniseries, and I think this is long overdue. I'm going to put the spotlight on Bond's ally in the CIA, Felix Leiter, who was wonderfully portrayed by Jeffrey Wright in my favorite James Bond movie, the Casino Royale, which I can't believe it was the first Daniel Craig James Bond film. And so they're giving Leiter his own miniseries. Now, Shane's going to read this, I would hope. Written by James Robinson. Wow! I'm looking forward to that.
Yep, that would be hard for any fan of both Bond and Starman to turn down, and that would seem to be Shane, yes.
And then the next page, this is very exciting. I'm a big fan of Francesco Francovilla's work, and he's tackling Will Eisner's The Spirit. The Corpse Makers, issues 1 through 5. Written and illustrated by Francavilla. Immediately.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I'm going to have to give that one a read, too. I just wish he'd get back to the Black Beetle, though. I'd like to see more of that character.
Black Beetle is a lot of fun. Go ahead, Mert.
Let me execute a quick backwards jump here, back to page
Sure.
292, Boom Studios. This is WWE #1, written by the talented Dennis Hopeless, who's done a couple of things for Marvel that I've thought have been really good, and Ross Thibodeau, illustrated by Edward Petrovich and Rob Guillory, and it's wrestling comics, and this is another one of those entertainment properties about which I know absolutely nothing, but for those of you who enjoy wrestling, there's certainly points of intersection between wrestling and superhero comics, so this could be fun, and the first issue is 50% off through DCBService.com. As is, I should also mention, the Felix Leiter, the first issue of the Felix Leiter miniseries you mentioned, Chris. That's also 50% off at DCBService.com.
And I should mention, even though we're not going to do an OTR this month, rest assured we're going to talk about some of these books. I mean, that goes without saying. I also want to point out on page 338, again, Dynamite, I'm really enjoying Garth Ennis's Red Team. This is the second arc he's done. This is about a elite squad of undercover cops who end up falling into a web of corruption. The first miniseries was tremendous, poignant and brutal. And the second one is about some of the characters from the first and what they end up involved in a new case. Again, if you like shows like The Shield, which I think is one of the greatest police dramas of all time on television, you'll definitely enjoy Red Team. Mert, I thought of you, Devil's Due. Are you an E-Man fan?
Well, I'm not yet, but I think I may someday
Okay.
be. That's a character that I've always been sort of curious to read more about.
And Joe Staten was a wonderful guest at a couple of my shows that I did, including the last Super Show we did back in 2013. And I know he's the artist. He's the writer, and I think is the writer and the artist of E-Man.
Yep, according to this, yeah. Writer along with Nicola Cuti.
Okay. So that may be something you want to check out. Let's see here. What else is jumping out at you, my friend?
Well, also from Devil's Due, we've got reprints of a forgotten Bronze Age independent press classic called The Black Flame, written by fantasy writer Peter B. Gillis, whom you probably recognize from his run on Doctor Strange, Chris, and art
Indeed.
by the late Tom Sutton.
He was a great artist. Oh, Tom Sutton was a great artist. Woo!
Yep, yeah, he's known as I think he was the first person to draw the hairy beast, actually, back in the 70s at Marvel.
Yes, that rings a bell.
Yep. So Devil's Due is reprinting this Black Flame fantasy saga in 7 reprint issues, 40 pages each at $5.99 cover price.
Mert, I salute you because I totally missed that. Well done, sir. That reminds me, and I might have blown by it. Which company? One of the companies here is reprinting Gil Kane's newspaper strip. God damn it, where is it? And I always like to champion Gil Kane because I think he's one of the greatest artists in the history of the modern comic book medium.
Yep, unfortunately, I can't help you find it, Chris, because it completely escaped my notice when I did my first read-through.
Oh, here it is. I got it. Okay, page 365. Let's see. This is from Hermes Press. Starhawks, the complete series, written by I may have mispronounced his name. I apologize. Ron Glar, who I know is a science fiction writer, and Gil Kane does the art. This is in 1977. 1,244 original black and white daily and full color Sunday strips. So I've heard of Starhawks, never actually seen it. If you're a Gil Kane fan, as I know Peter, of course, is, this may be something you want to check out. I can't emphasize enough how important Gil Kane is. I mean, his work both in the Silver Age for DC and then especially in the Bronze Age for Marvel. Think of the Green Lantern. Think of the Atom. Think of Captain Marvel. Think of some great work he did on Spider-Man in the Bronze Age. Think of Roy Thomas always talked about Gil Kane was his go-to cover artist. And when you look at the Bronze Age of Marvel, Gil Kane is everywhere when it comes to covers. Such a master artist. So that may be worth checking out.
Sure.
What else, Mert?
Well, yeah, we get to the back half of the book. My little marks kind of peter out a little bit. Turning the pages a little more rapidly now. I think there was at least something under Valiant. There's for XO fans, there's a new series written by Joe Harris from Valiant. This is on page 425. Arik, Son of the Revolution, #1. So it's more about the man inside the armor than the armor itself this time.
I wanted to point out, jumping back to page 396 under Titan, I've always been a fan of the movie director Walter Hill, who directed films like 48 Hours, Geronimo, Streets of Fire, The Warriors, and he's writing a comic, or co-writing a comic called Reassignment #1. Hitman Frank Kitchen's assignment to kill a celebrated fashion designer who's fallen behind on his debts takes a turn when his victim's sister, a sociopathic surgeon, decides to punish him in the unique way only she can. Abducted and operated on against his will, Frank awakens in an altered condition with the hitman's hunger for revenge. Interesting.
So it appears to be the story of an assassin who is forcibly surgically converted into a woman.
It looks like it, yeah. And that may be worth checking out again. I've always enjoyed Walter Hill's films.
Controversial to say the least. Yeah, which films did you say he's made, Chris?
The Warriors, 48 Hours, another 48 Hours, Geronimo, Streets of Fire, Red Heat with Schwarzenegger and James Belushi, which is fun. His action films just have a certain sensibility that you always know it's Walter Hill. Bert, I want to point out for you on page 420.
Okay.
Again, we have to laud Tomorrow to the Skies because no one is a greater archivist of the history of the comic book medium. So the MLJ Companion, so documenting the complete history of the Archie comic superhero characters, the Shield, Black Hood, Steel Sterling, Hangman, Mr. Justice, The Fly. That's right up your alley, Merd.
I would absolutely agree.
And page 420, Alter Ego 145. 40 years to the month after the debut of Marvel Star Wars #1, Roy Thomas, who of course we've talked about in our Star Wars Spotlight from last December, how he was the guy who got Marvel to take on the license and actually helped stave off bankruptcy for Marvel. Roy Thomas tells Richard Arndt the story behind that landmark comic going way beyond anything published before. I cannot wait to read this. I'm fascinated by that history. And interviews with many of the artists who worked on it as well. Fantastic.
Looks like Monarch Starstalker on the cover there.
Yes. Howard Chaykin, who of course was one of the main pencilers, at least in the early issues of the first Star Wars series. I had a lot of help from Ghost artists. Again, Alter Ego, but Jack Kirby Collector, Back Issue. If you're a fan of comics, if you appreciate the history of comics, the creators, read these publications. Nobody does it better and more lovingly, and no one has greater passion. All right. I think I'm done with single issues, unless you have something else, Merd.
I don't. In fact, I think I'm done with the entire book pretty much. I rarely. Go ahead.
A couple more things I'll mention before I have to head out. Page 53, Taschen is reissuing. These are magnificent. They're histories of the DC Universe written by Paul Levitz. The Golden Age, the Silver Age, and the Bronze Age. I own all these books. Essays or beautiful original, beautiful artwork in them. And then the 700 Years of Marvel from the Golden Age to the Silver Screen, written by Roy Thomas. It's a suitcase-sized book, $200, worth it if you're a fan of Marvel history. And it's Thomas, the man who lived most of it, who's writing the narrative. Tremendous. And again, these books are just a feast of classic artwork and panels from the era. I don't think I have anything. Usually I wax rhapsodic in a corny way about various shirts or other chops, but not much has actually jumped out at me in this particular edition of previews.
Well, on page 484, now then this image appears a few other places in the catalog, too. We've got a new statuette of Jessica Jones as Jewel.
Oh, yes.
So those of you who only know the character from the Netflix series, this is one of the things you missed.
And we are talking about Jessica Jones 1 as well in our supersized OTR, and that's another book I'm going to be praising to the skies. Mert, I think I've just about shot my bolt.
Yep.
How about you, brother?
Yeah, me too. And as you know, I don't have much to say about the collectibles side of things, action figures and apparel and such. So this month need be no different for me. So let's just.
Well, one thing I will mention on page 568. Forgive me for cutting you off there. If you've ever wanted to own a For Darkseid decal, now you can get it. So, very grim image of Darkseid there, his visage. That's on page 568.
I want to see that.
Go ahead, Mert. I'm sorry.
I want to see that on the rear window of dozens of hatchbacks in the coming year.
All right, brother, take us out.
I think the time has come to call it a night. Okay, so once again, folks, there were no off-the-rack picks this month. Off-the-racks are taking a Christmas vacation, but we will be giving you, as Chris has alluded to several times, a double-sized off-the-racks catch-up episode in the near future, so be on the lookout for that. Let us give another vote of thanks to our sponsor, Discount Comic Book Service. Their website is dcbservice.com. Go there, check out all of the monthly deals that they offer on a regular basis. Do your pre-ordering from them. We'd appreciate it, and you won't be sorry for it. They will take good care of you at dcbservice.com. Now then, if you would like to send us an email, our address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. Our voicemail phone number is 267-702-6642. You can follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. Our Twitter handle is @comicgeekspeak. We encourage you to stop by thecomicforums.vanillaforums.com, which is our forum site where you can talk back about this episode and participate in all kinds of different comics-related conversations with fellow CGS listeners. We'd like to give a special thank you to those of you who have donated monetarily to the show in the past. We really appreciate it and could not do the show without you. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
Laser beam, the